The Unified Species Council had watched Earth for 3 years. They sent tiny ships that floated in the clouds. They read human radio signals and watched human television. They studied human wars and human art and human science. After 3 years, they made their decision about what kind of species humans were. Humans think too much. That was their conclusion. The council had 47 different species. Some had fur, some had scales, some had no bodies at all and existed as pure energy. But they all agreed on one thing: humans were strange because they could not stop thinking. They were one of the oldest species on the council. They had 6 arms and skin that changed color based on their mood. They had won every diplomatic battle for 1,000 years because they could think of 7 different plans at the same time. When they heard about humans, they laughed. "They have only one brain," said the ambassador, "and they use it to doubt themselves. How amusing." They were even less impressed. They were not individuals. They were billions of minds connected together like one giant brain. When one thought something, all knew it instantly. They could solve problems that would take human computers 1,000,000 years. "Humans spend hours choosing what to eat for dinner," the representative said. "They are not a serious species." But Earth wanted to join the council. Humans had discovered faster-than-light travel 5 years ago, and now they wanted to be part of galactic civilization. They sent messages. They made requests. They begged. Finally, the council agreed to give humanity a chance, but there was a test. The Chamber of Proving was older than most civilizations. It floated in empty space, far from any star. It was a crystal sphere the size of a small moon, and inside it, species proved their worth. Any species that wanted to join the council had to send one representative to compete in the chamber. If they won, they earned a seat. If they lost, they had to wait another 100 years to try again. Earth's government took the selection very seriously. They created a special committee with the people from every country. They tested thousands of candidates. They looked for the perfect human, someone who could outthink the galaxy's greatest minds. They found General Shin first. He was a military genius who had never lost a war game. He studied for the competition every day for 6 months. He memorized the history of every species. He learned their languages and their strategies. Then, 2 weeks before he was supposed to leave for the chamber, General Shin had a breakdown. The pressure was too much. He started screaming that he could see patterns in the walls. The doctors said he needed rest, not a competition against alien minds. The committee panicked. They looked at their backup candidates, but none of them were ready. Some refused, others were too scared. That was when someone remembered the lottery. Years ago, a bureaucrat had created a backup system. If the main selection process failed, a random citizen would be chosen. It was supposed to be a joke, a way to make the selection seem fair to ordinary people. Nobody expected it to actually be used. The computer picked a name, Park. Age 26, occupation, barista, location, South Korea. The committee members looked at each other in horror. "There must be a mistake," said the committee chairman. There was no mistake. Had filled out a government form 3 years ago. She needed to register her new apartment, and the form had a small box at the bottom asking if she wanted to enter the Galactic Representative Lottery. She checked it without reading what it was. She did not even remember doing it. 2 days later, 3 government cars arrived at the coffee shop where worked. Men in black suits walked inside and asked for her. Was in the middle of making a latte. She had foam on her nose. "Park," one of the men asked. "Yes, did I do something wrong?" They explained the situation, listened while still holding the coffee cup. When they finished, she blinked several times. "You want me to fight aliens?" she asked. "Not fight," the man said. "Compete in challenges of the mind." "But I'm not smart," said. "I failed math in high school twice." The men looked uncomfortable. They knew this was a disaster, but there was no time to find anyone else. The Chamber of Proving had strict rules about timing. If Earth did not send someone in the next week, they would lose their chance for 100 years. So went. The journey to the chamber took 4 days, spent most of it looking out the window at the stars. She had never left South Korea before. Now she was flying past planets and nebulas and things she did not have names for. Was assigned to help her. He was a diplomat who had spent 10 years studying alien cultures. He tried to teach everything she needed to know. They communicate through arm movements, he explained, showing her diagrams. If they cross their third and fourth arms, it means they are planning to deceive you. nodded politely. She was thinking about whether she had remembered to cancel her subscription to a magazine before leaving Earth. The share one mind continued. When you face their representative, you are really facing billions of minds working together. That sounds tiring, said. Billions of people always knowing what you're thinking, you could never have a secret. Stared at her, that was not the reaction he expected. When their ship arrived at the Chamber of Proving, representatives from 47 species were waiting in the observation galleries. They had all come to watch humanity fail. It was expected to be amusing. The ambassador saw walk off her ship. She was wearing a gray suit that was too big for her because there had been no time to find one that fit. She was looking around at the crystal walls with her mouth slightly open, like a child at a museum. "This is their champion?" the ambassador asked. He laughed so hard that his secondary lungs collapsed. His assistants had to help him breathe again. Did not notice. She had found a window that looked out at a distant galaxy, and she was wondering if the stars there had planets, and if those planets had coffee shops, and if aliens liked lattes. She did not know that she was about to change galactic history. She was not thinking about victory or defeat or the future of humanity. She was just thinking that space was very pretty, and that she wished she had brought a warmer jacket. The first trial would begin in 1 hour. The Chamber of Proving was beautiful in a way that made chest feel tight. The walls were made of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. The floor was smooth like glass but warm under her feet. Everywhere she looked, there were aliens of every shape and size, watching from galleries that floated in the air like clouds. Stood in the center of the main arena, she felt very small. Her opponent walked toward her. His name was, and he was a champion. He had 6 arms and skin that shifted from blue to purple as he moved. He was tall, almost 3 meters, and his eyes were large and golden. He had won 9 competitions in the chamber. No one had ever beaten him. Looked at, his skin turned a shade of orange that meant he was amused. He moved his arms in a complex pattern. Had told her this gesture meant something insulting, but had forgotten what exactly. She waved at him. It seemed like the polite thing to do. Skin flickered. He had not expected that response. A voice echoed through the chamber. It came from everywhere at once, speaking in a language that somehow everyone could understand. The first trial will now begin, the maze of intentions. The floor beneath them changed. Walls rose from the ground, made of the same glowing crystal as everything else. Within seconds, and were standing in a labyrinth. The walls were taller than could see, stretching up into darkness. The maze reads your thoughts, the voice explained. It will block the paths you intend to take. Only those who master their own minds can find the exit. The first to escape wins. Smiled, they had trained for this trial for generations. They had learned to split their thinking into 7 different streams. They could plan to go left while also planning to go right while also planning to stay still. The maze could not block all 7 paths at once. He closed his golden eyes and began to think. His mind became a complex web of strategies and counter-strategies. He thought about going forward while also thinking about going backward while also thinking about climbing the walls. His arms moved in patterns that helped him concentrate. Then he opened his eyes and began to move. He walked with confidence, his 6 arms ready to react to any obstacle. The walls shifted, they blocked his path, adjusted following his secondary plan. The walls shifted again, he adjusted again. This was the game and he was very good at it. In another part of the maze was standing still. She had not started walking yet. She was looking at the walls, they were really very pretty. The way the light moved through the crystal made it look like there were tiny stars inside. She reached out and touched one. It was smooth and warm. She wondered who had built this place. It must have taken a long time. Did they have families? Did they miss their homes while they were building it? Started walking. She was not thinking about the exit. She was not thinking about strategy. She was thinking about the plants in her apartment back on Earth. She had asked her neighbor to water them, but her neighbor was forgetful. Her fern was probably dying right now. The maze walls stayed still as she walked. She turned left because the corridor on the left had prettier light. She turned right because she thought she heard a sound. She stopped to look at a pattern in the crystal that reminded her of a cat her family had owned when she was young. The walls did not move. The maze of intentions was designed to read minds and block paths, but's mind was not thinking about paths. She had no intentions for the maze to read. She was just walking. In the observation galleries, the alien representatives were becoming confused. "What is she doing?" asked the representative. The collective had analyzed her movements and found no pattern. This was impossible. Everything had a pattern. "Perhaps she is using a strategy we cannot detect," suggested a diplomat from the energy beings. The ambassador shook his head. "Look at her face. She's not thinking about the trial at all." They watched as wandered through the maze like she was taking a walk in a park. She hummed a song to herself. She stopped to scratch her nose. At one point, she sat down on the floor because her feet hurt from the new shoes she was wearing. The walls never moved for her. There were no intentions to block. 11 minutes after the trial began, walked out of the maze exit. She did not realize she had found it until she was already outside. She looked around at the arena with surprise. "Oh," she said, "was that it?" In the maze was struggling. Every path he planned was blocked. Every strategy was countered. His 7 streams of thought had become a prison, creating 7 walls for every step he tried to take. His skin was changing colors rapidly, showing his frustration and confusion. He did not emerge for another 40 minutes. When he finally stumbled out of the exit, his 6 arms were shaking. His golden eyes were wide with shock. Was sitting on the floor of the arena, teaching a small maintenance drone how to play a hand game. The drone did not have hands, so it was using its cleaning tools. Was laughing because the drone kept choosing the same option. "You cannot just pick scissors every time," she told it. "You have to mix it up." The drone beeped at her. It did not understand, but it seemed happy to be included. Stood at the maze exit, staring at her. In his entire life, he had never lost a trial. His species had never lost this trial. They had prepared for it for 1,000 years. And this human, this small creature with only 2 arms and 1 brain, had beaten him without even trying. "How?" he asked. His voice was rough. "How did you do it?" Looked up at him, she thought for a moment. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I just walked." The chamber was silent. 47 species had no words. The ambassador's secondary lungs collapsed again. His assistants were getting tired of helping him breathe. Watched from the gallery. His hands were shaking. He had prepared 100 strategies for to use. He had written notes and made diagrams. She had not looked at any of them. And she had one. He did not understand, but for the first time since this disaster began, he felt something strange in his chest. "Hope." The voice echoed through the chamber again. "The human wins the first trial. The second trial will begin tomorrow." Stood up and stretched. "Is there a place to get food around here?" she asked the maintenance drone. "I'm really hungry." The drone beeped and rolled away. Followed it, leaving behind a chamber full of shocked aliens and one very confused diplomat. She did not look back. She was thinking about dinner. The galaxy did not sleep that night. On 1,000 worlds, analysts watched recordings of walking through the maze of intentions. They slowed the footage down. They sped it up. They measured her steps and tracked her eye movements. They built computer models of her brain activity. They found nothing. The collective was the most frustrated. They had 3 billion minds working together as one, and they devoted a significant portion of their processing power to solving the mystery of the human woman. They analyzed every second of her trial. They compared her movements to every strategy ever recorded. "There must be a pattern," the collective insisted. "All beings have patterns, she is hiding hers." But there was no pattern. Had walked through the maze thinking about plants and songs and a cat that had died when she was 12 years old. Her victory was an accident of having no plan at all. The second trial was announced the next morning. It was called the Grid of Fates. Ate breakfast while tried to explain the rules. "It is like a war game," he said. "You control an army on a battlefield. You move your soldiers and try to defeat your opponent." "Like chess?" asked. She was eating some kind of alien fruit that tasted like strawberries mixed with honey. "Much more complex than chess," said. "The Grid of Fates has been played for 10,000 years. There are millions of recorded strategies. Every possible move has been studied." Nodded. She was not really listening. The fruit was very good. Her opponent was waiting in the arena. Was her name, though that was not exactly accurate, was not a single person. She was a piece of the collective, a node that held a portion of 3 billion minds. When thought, she thought with the power of entire civilizations. They had never lost the grid of fates. They had access to every game ever played. They could calculate millions of moves per second. They did not just play the game, they had solved it. The arena transformed into a holographic battlefield. Mountains rose on one side, forests on the other. A river ran through the middle. His army appeared on the left, glowing blue. His army appeared on the right, glowing red. "You may begin," the chamber announced. Moved instantly. Her units flowed across the battlefield in a pattern called Opening Variation 7832. It was one of the strongest opening moves ever discovered. It had been tested in 10,000 simulations. It had a 93% success rate. Looked at her control interface. It was a floating screen that showed her army from above. There were little symbols for different units: soldiers, cavalry, archers, siege weapons. She had no idea what to do. The interface was confusing. The buttons were labeled in a language she did not recognize. She pressed one and a group of soldiers moved. She pressed another and they stopped. Slowly, carefully, she arranged her units. She was not thinking about strategy. She was just trying to make them look nice. She pushed them around until they formed a shape she liked. In the observation gallery, covered his face with his hands. What is she doing? The ambassador leaned forward. He had recovered from his lung collapses and was watching with great interest. It appears she is arranging her army into the shape of a small animal. It was true, had moved her units until they looked like a cat. The soldiers were the body. The cavalry were the ears. The archers were the tail. Froze. The collective processed the formation. They searched their databases for any strategy that involved a cat shape. They found nothing. They searched for animal-based formations in general. They found nothing relevant. What does it mean? The collective wondered. It must be a code, a signal, a trap. 3 billion minds tried to decode the message hidden in Scat army. They found no message because there was no message. It was just a cat. But they did not know that. They were a species of pure logic. Everything had meaning. Everything had purpose. The idea that someone would do something for no reason at all was impossible for them to understand. Hesitated, her army held position while the collective analyzed. Seconds passed, then minutes. Got bored waiting. She started moving her units around again, not with any plan, just to see what would happen. She sent her cavalry charging toward the river. She forgot about her archers in the tail of the cat. She pushed her soldiers forward because the button for that was the biggest one on her screen. Her formation fell apart. The cat became a mess. Units wandered across the battlefield with no coordination. Watched in confusion. She is sacrificing her units, the collective observed. But why? What is the purpose? They decided it must be a distraction, a clever trick to make them lower their guard. They held their position, waiting for the real attack. The real attack never came, was not capable of a real attack. She did not know how to coordinate her units. She did not understand the terrain bonuses or the combat calculations. But while Waited's forgotten cavalry squadron wandered across the map, she had stopped paying attention to them. They moved on their own, following the last command she had given. That command was to go forward. They went forward, past the river, past the mountains, into his undefended base. A message appeared on screen. She could not read the alien words, but there was a picture of a flag, and the flag was blue, her color. What happened? She asked. The chamber announced the result. The human wins the second trial by capturing the opponent's base. Stood motionless. The collective experienced something they had never felt before. 3 billion minds, working as one, had been defeated by a woman who had accidentally won while not paying attention. In the observation gallery, silence stretched for a long time. Then the ambassador started laughing. He laughed so hard his secondary lungs collapsed for the third time. This time his assistants did not help him immediately. They were too shocked to move. Impossible, said. Her voice was flat. The collective was struggling to process the failure. We calculated every possibility. There is no strategy that could defeat us. Walked down to the arena floor. His legs were shaking. He approached carefully like she was a dangerous animal. He said slowly, "How did you know to send the cavalry to her base?" Shrugged, "I didn't. I forgot they were there. I was trying to make a dog next, but the buttons are confusing." Stared at her. He opened his mouth to say something, then closed it again. For the first time in his diplomatic career, he had no words. looked around the arena at the thousands of aliens watching her. They were all silent, all staring. She felt uncomfortable under their gaze. "Can I go now?" she asked. "I want to call my mom. She worries when I don't check in." Nobody stopped her as she walked out of the arena. They were all too busy trying to understand what they had just witnessed. They would analyze this moment for years. Scholars would write papers about it. Philosophers would debate its meaning. Would forget about it by the time she reached her room. She had more important things on her mind. Her mother was going to ask if she was eating well and wanted to tell her about the fruit that tasted like strawberries. The third day came too quickly. Had spent the night talking to her mother on a communication screen that had set up for her. Her mother cried when she saw her daughter's face. She asked if it was safe, if she was eating, if the aliens were treating her well. "The food is good," told her, "and everyone has been nice. Well, most of them. Some of them have too many arms. It makes me nervous." Her mother laughed through her tears. That's my girl, always noticing strange things. Did not tell her mother about the competitions. She did not want her to worry. Instead, she talked about the crystal walls and the floating galleries and the maintenance drone that followed her everywhere now. The drone had decided that was its friend, and it beeped sadly whenever she left. In the morning, came to her room with a serious expression. "The final trial is today," he said. "This is the most important one." "What do I have to do?" Hesitated. "I do not fully understand it myself. It is called the heart of truth. The chamber scans your mind and judges your species based on what it finds." Frowned. "That sounds like a test I can't study for." "No one can study for it. The trial judges who you really are deep inside. What makes your species what it is." Thought about this. What if it doesn't like what it finds? Then humanity waits another 100 years. His voice was heavy. "And you become known as the human who failed when it mattered most." Was quiet for a moment, then she nodded. "Okay, let's go then." The arena was different today. Instead of an open space, there were two chambers in the center. They looked like eggs made of white crystal, large enough for a person to sit inside. Soft light came from within them. Opponent was already there. Prime was the emperor of the hegemony of the 7 stars. His species had conquered 1,000 worlds. They were tall and proud, with skin like polished metal and eyes that burned with inner fire. Prime stood nearly 4 meters tall. His presence filled the arena. He looked at the way someone might look at an insect. "So this is the human champion," he said. His voice echoed like thunder. "I expected something more impressive." Did not know what to say to that, so she said nothing. They had won the heart of truth for 18 years in a row. Their species believed in strength above all things. They believed that the strong had the right to rule and the weak existed to serve. The chamber had judged this essence worthy every time. Prime walked to his meditation chamber. "This trial is already over, little human. My species has been judged the greatest in known space for 18 cycles. Your species is young and weak. You think too much and act too little. The chamber will see this truth." Walked to her own chamber. The crystal door opened for her and she stepped inside. It was warm and comfortable, like being wrapped in a blanket. There was a soft seat and she settled into it. The door closed, the light changed, and felt something strange happen in her mind. It was like invisible fingers were gently moving through her thoughts. Not painful, not scary, just curious. The chamber was looking at her, trying to understand what she was. Did not know what to show it. She was not a warrior or a genius or a leader. She was just a person who made coffee for people and talked to her plants and missed her mother. So that's what the chamber saw. It saw a small apartment inn. It saw her making lattes in the early morning, steam rising from the machine. It saw the regulars who came to her shop. The old man who always ordered black coffee and told her stories about his youth. The university student who studied in the corner and sometimes forgot to pay until reminded her gently. The mother with the crying baby who just needed someone to smile at her and say everything would be okay. The chamber saw giving the student free pastries when she looked hungry. It saw her sitting with the old man when business was slow, listening to stories she had heard 100 times before. It saw her holding the door open for strangers and picking up trash on the sidewalk and feeding the stray cat that lived behind her building. It saw small moments, tiny kindnesses, nothing important, nothing heroic. But it saw something else too. It saw that did these things without thinking. She did not help people because she wanted something in return. She did not calculate the benefit. She just did it because it felt right. In the other chamber, Prime was showing the chamber something very different. His mind was a fortress of fire and iron. He showed the chamber his conquests, his victories, his power. He showed a species that had risen to the top through strength and will. He showed a species that always asked, "What do I gain?" The chamber looked at both minds. It compared them, it judged. And then it gave its verdict. The human demonstrates the rarest quality in known space. Prime's eyes flew open. The words were not what he expected. Other species have evolved toward greater complexity, the chamber continued. They calculate and plan and strategize. They ask what they will gain from each action. They have forgotten how to simply exist. In her chamber was asleep. The warm seat and the gentle light had made her drowsy, and she had drifted off without meaning to. She was dreaming about her coffee shop, about the steam rising from milk foam, about the sound of the bell when customers walked in. The human's mind contains no grand ambition, no drive for power, no desire to dominate. Instead, it contains something that cannot be defeated because it does not compete. The capacity to simply be, to exist without agenda, to give without expecting. Prime's chamber cracked. His rage was enormous. Fire leaked from the seams of the crystal egg. "This is wrong," he roared. "Humans are weak, they are prey, they cannot possibly be judged above them." The judgment stands. Humanity demonstrates a form of strength that force cannot overcome, a presence that strategy cannot defeat. The human wins the heart of truth. The Emperor's chamber exploded. Crystal shards flew across the arena. Prime emerged surrounded by flames, his metal skin glowing with heat. He screamed in a language that had no words, only fury. His chamber opened gently. She woke up slowly, blinking in the bright lights of the arena. She yawned and stretched her arms above her head. "What happened?" she asked. "Did I fall asleep?" Prime turned toward her, his burning eyes fixed on this small, ordinary human who had somehow defeated him. For a moment, it seemed like he might attack her. His flames grew brighter. Looked at him, she did not see an emperor. She did not see a conqueror of 1,000 worlds. She saw someone who was very upset. "Are you okay?" she asked. Her voice was genuinely concerned. "You look like you're having a bad day." The emperor froze. No one had ever asked if he was okay, not once in his 300 years of life. His flames flickered, then dimmed, then died. He stared at for a long moment. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. His footsteps echoed in the silent arena until he was gone. Watched him go with a small frown. "I hope he feels better," she said to herself. In the observation gallery, 47 species were silent. They had watched the judgment. They had seen the chamber declare humanity worthy. They had witnessed the most powerful emperor in the galaxy walk away from a human barista who had asked if he was okay. The ambassador's secondary lungs were fine this time. He was too stunned to laugh. Stood in the gallery, tears running down his face. He did not fully understand what had happened, but he knew that had won. Somehow, impossibly, she had won all 3 trials. Humanity had earned their seat on the council, and was wondering if there was time for breakfast before the ceremony. The ceremony was beautiful. 47 flags hung from the crystal ceiling, each one representing a species on the council. Now there would be 48. Earth's flag, blue and green, showing a small planet against the black of space, rose slowly to join the others. Representatives from every species filled the great hall. Some had traveled for weeks to be here. They wanted to see the human who had done the impossible. They wanted to understand. Stood at the center of it all in her ill-fitting gray suit. Someone had tried to fix the suit for her, but it still hung loosely on her shoulders. She had refused a new one. "This one is comfortable," she said. "I don't want to change." Stood beside her. He had prepared a speech. It was a good speech, full of philosophy and meaning. He had worked on it all night, trying to explain what humanity represented, what's victory meant for their place in the galaxy. But when the moment came to speak, he found he could not say the words. He looked at, she was watching a small cleaning drone move across the floor. It was the same drone that had followed her around the chamber for the past 3 days. She smiled at it, and the drone beeped happily. Put away his speech. "Thank you," he said simply to the gathered species. "Earth is honored to join you." That was all. The crowd waited for more but stepped back. The voting happened quickly. Not every species agreed that humanity deserved their seat. The voted no, though Prime did not attend. Several others abstained, still confused about what they had witnessed. But enough voted yes. Humanity was now part of galactic civilization. After the ceremony, the ambassador approached. His 6 arms were still, which meant he was being serious. His skin was a calm blue, which meant he was at peace. "I have watched your species for years," he said. "I thought I understood humans. I was wrong." Looked up at him, understood us how. "We believed humans were weak because you think too much. We believed your constant analysis was a flaw." He paused. "But you do not think too much. You do not think at all." "I think about things," said, a little defensive. "Just not big things, important things." And that is exactly the point. The ambassador's skin shifted to a warm gold. "My species spent 1,000 years learning to split our thoughts into 7 streams, that built a collective of 3 billion minds, the conquered worlds to prove their strength. We all believed that more was better, more thoughts, more power, more complexity." He looked down with something like wonder. "You showed us that less can be more, that a mind with no plan cannot be outplanned, that a heart with no agenda cannot be manipulated." He made a gesture with his arms that did not recognize. "You have given the galaxy something to think about, which is ironic, considering." Smiled but did not fully understand. She rarely fully understood things. That had never bothered her before, and it did not bother her now. The ambassador left and others came. Aliens of every shape and size wanted to meet the human champion. They asked her questions. They studied her face. They tried to find the secret of her success. There was no secret. Told them about her coffee shop and her plants and her mother. She asked them about their homes and their families and their favorite foods. She was genuinely curious. She had never met aliens before, and they were interesting. By the end of the night, she had made more friends than some diplomats made in a lifetime. Watched from across the room. He had finally started writing again, not a speech this time, but something else. A paper. He was trying to put into words what had shown the galaxy. He called it Strategic Non-Strategy, a framework for understanding intuitive decision-making in high-stakes environments. It was a fancy title for a simple idea. Sometimes the best way to win is to not try to win at all. The paper would become famous. Military academies across the galaxy would study it. Philosophers would debate its implications. The collective would devote 0.01% of their processing power to analyzing it for the next 300 years. They would find no new insights. The truth was simpler than they could accept. Some minds were not meant to be analyzed. 1 week later, returned to Earth. The government wanted to give her medals and titles. They wanted her to become an ambassador or a spokesperson or something important. She declined everything. "I just want to go home," she said. "I miss my coffee shop." So they let her go. What else could they do? Went back to, she reopened her small shop on the corner of a quiet street. She watered her plants, and they forgave her for leaving them. She fed the stray cat behind her building, and it acted like she had never been gone. Life went back to normal, mostly. Sometimes alien ships appeared in Earth's sky, tourists who wanted to visit the planet of the strange humans. Some of them found their way to coffee shop. They were easy to spot, with their unusual bodies and confused expressions. Served them coffee. She taught them how to order. She laughed when they made faces at the bitter taste and suggested they try something. One day I came into her shop, not the ambassador, but a young one. He had only 4 arms, which meant he was still growing. His skin was nervous pink. "I came to learn," he said. "My elders speak of you. They say you know something we have forgotten." Made him a latte. She drew a small flower in the foam because she liked making customers smile. "I don't know anything special," she said. "I just make coffee." The young took the cup. He looked at the flower in the foam. His skin shifted to a soft, wondering gold. "Maybe that is the lesson," he said quietly. Smiled and moved on to the next customer. She did not think about his words. She did not analyze their meaning. She just made the next coffee, and the next, and the next. Outside, the sun set over. The sky turned orange and pink and purple, beautiful colors that glanced at through the window. She thought about how nice it looked. She did not think about the galaxy watching humanity with new eyes. She did not think about the papers being written about her or the debates happening on distant worlds. She did not think about how she had changed history without meaning to. She thought about the sunset. She thought about the coffee. She thought about calling her mother later. Small things, simple things. That was the secret, though would never call it that. In a galaxy of minds that could not stop thinking, she had shown them all what it meant to simply be. And somewhere in the depths of the collective, 3 billion minds were still trying to understand. They never would. But that was okay. Some things were not meant to be understood. They were just meant to be.